let's look back on yesterday's victory against Swansea. That winning feeling, Glenn, you can't buy it, can you?
Well, you can. you can if you spend enough money, but PSR regulations don't allow you to these days. But no, in all seriousness, yes, it was nice to go to a game, come away from a game, and not having had it ruin the entire day or weekend or whatever. It's a feeling we haven't had often this season. We've probably only picked up maybe 3 or 4 results all season that people are happy with. So yeah, it's nice to walk away having had a decent afternoon. And I think the primary takeaway from the game was the strength of the opposition, and which is obviously vastly inferior to what we've been playing in every game this season. And it kind of was a game that illustrated to me the sort of levels that there are, even at the bottom of the Premier League, compared to the Championship, and it is a massive problem for football going forward. The difference in standards between those two divisions, and we're seeing that this year in the Prem with the 3 teams that are down the bottom, and Swansea are mid-table in the Championship, and they're looking for a run, for the playoffs, and it's hard to imagine given what we saw yesterday, but stranger things have happened in the in the Championship. So no, it was nice to win. It's nice to score a few goals, create a few chances. There was some decent performances, but everything's got to be caveated with the strength of the opposition that we were playing against. So yeah, nothing to complain about, which is nice. Well, a couple of little things, perhaps we'll get onto those later. But yeah, overall, it was an enjoyable day, and yeah, good times.
Steve, Swansea were poor, weren't they? Let's be honest. Glenn spoke about the gap between the 2 leagues. It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind we obviously more or less battered them home and away in the league last season, 5-0 at home and a 3-1 away from home that massively flattered them. Yeah, I guess there shouldn't be a huge amount of surprise that, especially where Swansea have still got they've still got the same style of play that they've been employing for years, really. It's kind of been their trademark, really, has been the sort of possession game. But I think they're in that sort of situation at the moment where, when you get similar to what we had earlier in the season, in that when you take that step up and you play against better teams that are better at doing that style of play, then you basically just get completely found out. And I mean, their keeper must have presented us the ball 5 times, I reckon, in the final third. I mean, I think only one of them was in a properly dangerous situation, which was ended up rescuing by the defender taking the yellow card. But yeah, they were desperately poor, and of course they made a handful of changes themselves from their strongest 11. So whereas we only made 2 changes, I think, from last week, they've made 4 or 5, I think, and just the gap in class was noticeable anyway. And with them putting half a reserve team out, it just made it even more they had a real lack of kind of experience alongside Grimes in midfield. No Joe Allen until late on, and yeah, I think we were able to dominate quite comfortably. That said, we got ourselves into a lot of good positions in the first half without actually eventually sort of causing the keeper any particular danger up until the point that we did take the lead. So that's one thing that I think they'll be looking at in terms of, okay, we made a fast start, but actually we while we got into some good positions, either the final ball or the shot was lacking. So as Glenn said, still plenty to work on, but it was good to see that even a kind of overall lack of confidence because of results didn't stop us actually putting in a half decent performance, albeit against opposition who were very much kind of catered for us to help us on our way, really.
Alfie, Cambodia and Sulmana, he's come back into the side under Ivan Juric. He seems to really like him. He's shown a lot of belief in him. He spoke yesterday that he wasn't in great shape when he arrived at the football club. He played well yesterday, but we've been waiting for him to turn up for a fair while now, haven't we? He was a club record signing, not done a great deal up until now, but it was a decent performance from him, I thought, in the first 45 yesterday.
Yeah, I think to be fair to Ivan Juric, he's come in and been really honest about a lot of people, and I think to a lot of people as well. I think Kamaldeen Sulmana is one of those, because he said that one of the things he heard was about attitude issues to an extent as well a couple of weeks ago, and he's now said that he arrived, he wasn't fit. So he said, right, well, he didn't have a great attitude, he wasn't very fit, but yeah, he's picked him in his last couple
winning
teams.
Combination.
Exactly, he clearly backs him, but it makes you wonder, is he somebody who just, he's come in, he's seen that he's got a bit of pace, a bit of talent, and he's gone, I need to put an arm around him. I need to make sure he's aware of the reason why he hasn't been successful so far, but try and get him firing. And Ivan has pointed out the fact that he's done things he's liked in previous Premier League games since he's arrived. And I didn't really see them. I couldn't really see what he was doing that he liked. But what you have to say is against Swansea, against that level of opposition, he was brilliant. And, from the first minute, he was particularly aggressive, sort of pressing really high, working hard, tracking back when needed. And he had the moments in attack, obviously scoring his first goal since May 2023, which, is such a long time. And setting up Tyler Diblin brilliantly as well, and not only putting the ball in, but actually that entire phase of play was Kamaldeen linking up really well with Leslie Ugochukwu, who also had a really good game. So you've got to give him credit. Is it a false dawn? Is it the beginning of something like Ivan Juric wants? Who knows? But what he's done is he's definitely put himself in the team for Man United and probably Forest as well. And if he plays like that against better opposition, then there's no reason why he shouldn't be involved. But yeah, I'll put my hands up and say that, like Glen and I'm sure Steve as well, when I saw that lineup, I did think, where are the goals coming from? Even against Swansea, you did think there's no recognised striker. Kamaldeen's never really done anything else, but yeah, he was really good. He was my man in the match. I know Tyler won the Saints vote on the app, but Kamaldeen for me was the man who won them that game in that first half, and I'm intrigued to see how he gets on in the next couple of games, because he's earned a chance.
He needs to kick on now for me, doesn't he? Going forward, Premier League obviously returns later on this week. Glen, Sulmana, could he be a player that potentially stays in the side going forward and goes on and starts to prove a few people wrong, do you think?
Maybe. It's a bit of a stretch to assume that based on 45 minutes against Swansea. I was thinking about something I said a couple of years ago, when we were in the second half of the season and we were obviously going to get relegated when Ruben Sellers was in charge. And I was looking at the squad of players and thinking, how many of these players are capable of playing 3 decent games in a row in the Premier League? And there weren't many. And there's even less this year. And so for me, Sulmana is one, if he wants to prove that he's a Premier League footballer, he has to take the form that he showed in the Swansea game and do it over the next 2 or 3 games to prove that he can be an asset at this level. You need to do more than just, turn up against a championship side in the FA Cup. So, but that was a hell of a lot better than what he's done so far, which is a very low bar. It's interesting that it's been mentioned that he's the sort that needs an arm around him. I mean, it frustrates me when a player can be, it's not like he's 17. He's 22. He's not that young. You'd think by that stage you could motivate yourself. You wouldn't need someone telling you you're brilliant all the time to actually go out and perform.
I mean, the only thing I would say about that is, like, clearly Russell Martin from the start didn't rate him, didn't like him. He gave him a couple of chances here and there, but even sort of to us in press conference and stuff, he would be quite happy to explain what Kamaldeen wasn't doing, which is totally fair enough if he's not doing the things expected of him. But maybe it just has been 18 months. He hasn't felt loved, hasn't felt rated, and maybe it has got on top of him. And you say he's 22, that is young. 22 is young.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, we were still calling Nathan Tella Starboy when he was 23. I just find it embarrassing, to be honest. But I mean, with I can understand why it didn't really work for Sulmana under Russell Martin, because he's obviously the sort of player who wants to play off the cuff. He wants to take people on, and he wants to try and do stuff. And that Russell Martin said to the wingers, "I want you to, keep possession of the football first and foremost." I mean, you've even seen last week Adam Armstrong. He dropped a shoulder, threw a dummy, and tried to beat someone on the halfway line, which he'd never done in any game under Russell Martin, because he just was obviously told not to do it. So yeah, maybe Sulmana can thrive just by being given that, don't worry if you lose it sort of thing. Don't be afraid to try stuff. I thought it was interesting the way that because we almost played the split striker thing again, which spectacularly didn't work at the start of the season. So Sulmana was pulling left, Dibbling was pulling right. But what I liked about it, the way they did it, is the fact that Tyler Dibbling scored 2 goals from right in the middle of the penalty area, 6 yards out. It shows that they have obviously been working on, if the play's down the other side, then you make sure you get in the middle, which is what we weren't doing in those first horrible games of the season, where someone would go down one wing and there'd be absolutely no one in the middle. So I can kind of see there was a few experiments in there, or a few instructions in there that were carried out, and it's I think we all know this season's gone, but we just want to see some sort of attacking impetus taken into some of these future games, so we might not have another 18 games of abject misery to dissect on this podcast. It would be nice, whoever the 2 players are that play up front, if they could form some sort of partnership, and hopefully yesterday was the first signs of that.
Steve, a man we've not seen a lot of is Cameron Archer. I like Cameron Archer. I thought he was one of our brighter sparks early on in the season. He's struggling to get in the side. What's your thoughts on that one, Steve?
I could only assume that he's like maybe showing signs of sort of a lack of confidence or whatever in training, because there's nothing that we've seen from anybody else in the squad as kind of a hard and fast justification for Archer not being in, or at least getting opportunities in that team. Like Adam Armstrong, we know what his level is at this level. We know that it's not quite there. Onuachu, okay, yeah, everybody's had a little bit of a laugh and a giggle. Not good enough. Yeah, okay, he might be the guy that can play a link role, but you've got to kind of use him as a better focal point and just be able to get players around him better, which we can't do. So Archer should be the guy who's important in this team, because we know that he plays well off the shoulder, especially against the high line. So, I mean, a game like Thursday at Old Trafford, you would think United are going to be playing quite a pretty high line, even though Maguire's likely to be in their back 3. They'll rely on the speed of the other 2 to pick up the slack there, and actually that's kind of where Archer kind of comes into his own, I think, when you're able to get balls down the channel for him to chase onto. But frankly, the last 2-3 months we've stopped giving him the ball. One thing we said at the start of the season when we first kind of saw him, especially Cardiff away, you could see he was just constantly making the same run. And trusting that eventually somebody in midfield will play the pass, and he scored 2 goals as a result of it. And we've got to get back to kind of trying to do that again. I think that's kind of reliant on players in the midfield areas who are a little bit more comfortable with what they're doing, happy to play that pass kind of first time if it needs to be. Also happy to hold your hands up and say, "Yep, sorry, didn't quite weight that right, or it got intercepted, or whatever." I mean, Russell Martin used to be really a real big fan of sort of saying, "Oh, we were really brave on the ball." Bravery on the ball isn't just retaining possession. Bravery on the ball is having the confidence to play the pass, to play the kind of killer pass, even when there is a high risk of it not working, because the reward from playing that pass, it's kind of similar to how the attitude that we had with possession in our defensive third is actually the attitude we should have had in the attacking third, where attacking players should have the freedom to give the ball away. Because if you give the ball away, but you're trying something that, if it comes off, will be brilliant and will lead to a clear chance for a teammate, absolutely, you shouldn't ever be getting hammered for that. Whereas it was kind of the opposite. We were giving defensive players a free pass for presenting the opposition with a free shot 15 yards from our goal. So I think we kind of got priorities slightly skewed at some point. I'm not quite sure when that balance kind of tipped. But yeah, I think that's where I think we're going to kind of hopefully cause teams a few problems. But I mean, I would probably put Cameron Archer in as my first choice attacker, but
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
think I don't think even Juric sees it that way. So I can only conclude there's been some. I don't know whether he's just not been kind of on top form in training, which is surprising given that he gets to play against our defence every week.
Yeah, it's a surprising one because I think he's got so much to give, and maybe the confidence after the Liverpool game, he was pulled out the side not long after that. Maybe he just has lost some confidence. Somebody that's come back into the side, Alfie, Leslie Ugochukwu, he seems to be a really important linchpin in that midfield for Ivan Juric and the way he wants to play football. Need to keep hold of him, don't we? Do you think that that's going to happen?
Well, he was a really important linchpin in the midfield against Swansea. Yeah, he was one of the better players for sure. I mean, if you go back to the Brentford game, he was not that. He certainly wasn't. So he's still a bit of a mixed bag at the moment, isn't he? I think we've seen as many good performances now, I think, probably as we've seen bad. But we've seen a few bad ones. But what happens with him just comes down to Chelsea, doesn't it? Really, if they think that he's going to get the right game time here, then they'll let someone keep him. And Ivan Juric wants to keep him because he's got very limited options in that midfield. I think you look at maybe Flynn Downs. Joe Reba, I thought, did okay yesterday, but started a bit slow. I mean, Will Swansea is now
His
back.
His positioning was very interesting. Basically playing as a sort of fourth centre-back at times. It was really odd.
Yeah, it's probably he's gone from playing striker in the Europa League final to, like you say, sort of a half-back in the FA Cup third round. Interesting career move. Will Smallbone's back. He's he's really liked by Ivan Juric, actually. Even though you probably wouldn't look at him and think he's that sort of heavy metal football. I think he likes the way he understands the game and sees him, and he'll get a chance under Ivan. And to be fair to Will, I mean, I feel bad for him because he has played like 20-odd Premier League games now, but he's never really had a run. The last time he played more than 3 in a row was in 2020. And he hasn't been given a chance this season. So I want to see him first before we declare that he's not good enough at this level. But yeah, you wouldn't put him down as an Ivan Juric type player. And I think that's it, isn't it? It's those four really that are the main options. Obviously, Adam Lallana seems to only do 5-10 minutes at a time under Ivan. So yeah, I think you're not going to get a better player than Leslie Ugochukwu for nothing. So they might as well keep hold of him if they can. And it's just the other one that you want to send back, obviously Maxwell Cornet. So I think if they can get him and go on and get another loan, and then I'd keep Leslie. But you talk about the strikers, Cameron Archer and that. I mean, Ivan Juric spoke about sort of Tyler Diblin's positioning yesterday, and he said basically he's obviously only 18. He's not like physically developed, so he can't run that much. He can't do the pressing game that I want. And the one position on the pitch where I can sort of alleviate him of that is up front as a striker, where he can just sort of wait for his moment in the box, like Glen suggested, and just score the goals there with the talent he has. So I think Ivan sees him going forward and probably Kamaldeen as the striker pairing, just because it gets the best out of Tyler and means he doesn't have to do all the running and stuff that he has to do either on the right or in the middle. So I think we'll probably see that against United as well.
Is there any news, Alfie, on Flynn Downs and his injury at the moment? Is he nearing a return?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, they've had a couple of games now where he's been like nearly back, and then he's not. And I think Ivan said during this one he definitely wasn't going to be back. So I'd imagine he's not close. So that's usually the kind of thing they say when there's a bit of a setback. So I don't know exactly, but I'm not expecting him to be back.
Glenn, there was an attendance yesterday. It was particularly low, wasn't it? You were there. You were pitch side with our sponsor. 12,150. They were saying lowest since playing Northampton in the League Cup. What were your thoughts on the turnout yesterday?
Well, it's indicative of A, when the game was, B, as in just after Christmas, B, I think we've touched on the ridiculous ticket prices they put on the game. Our poor season so far, it's an extra game. Did people want to put themselves, pay extra money to put themselves through that if they were season ticket holders? So I mean, Swansea's fans I thought were excellent. There was not many of them, but the ones that were there, put a lot in. So it wasn't a particularly attractive game for them either. And I think it all adds up to to 12,000 people turning up, and it was live on telly as well, wasn't it? So it was an easy one to watch. And I mean, I'll be brutally honest. I mean, this was the first time in years that I was going to voluntarily miss a game, because I just, for all of the reasons said above, mainly the cost of it just after Christmas, I wasn't going to go. And then we were very fortunate that Paul invited us along to watch the game, and it all got a bit bizarre, because the more eagle-eyed viewers of you will have noticed that there was some big lumbering idiot looking like a bodyguard on the pitch at the start of the game.
How did it all come about? How did it all come about?
Well, Steve bottled it. He was asked first, and there was someone good looking down there, and so they asked Steve first, and he bottled it. And and I bearing in mind that Paul had invited us to the game, and he asked me to do it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do it if no one else will. And I didn't think anything of it. And then 10 minutes later, we got the knock to go down. So Paul and myself were competing for who was the most unathletic thing to grace the pitch on yesterday afternoon. So it was all a bit weird, but all good fun.
But Glenn, it's what I said to you yesterday. I mean, that's the closest you've ever been to Comedy in Sulmana, and an absolute treat. So there's something in there, I'm sure.
Obviously. Well, get me on the pitch at Old Trafford, and we'll see if we can we'll get a performance out of him. But no, it was a good day, very enjoyable, and thank you very much to our sponsor Paul for inviting us along.
It was good. I thought it was a good opportunity for the club to try and get more kids there. People that don't have that money to go and watch Premier League football, because it's expensive to watch Premier League football. Ipswich yesterday was half the price for an adult. They did it at a tenner. I think they did kids for a fiver. But it's just that opportunity. Even if you did kids for a quid, or just try and get people that opportunity to go and watch live football. Because I took my daughters many years ago, and it once you take them once, they can become a Saints fan for life. I just think it's a missed opportunity. That's my opinion. Magic of the FA Cup, Steve. I want to talk to you about the magic of the FA Cup. Do you feel that's drifted away a little bit over the last few years? And it seems to be winding away more and more, doesn't it?
Yeah, this season is obviously particularly bad because we're now into the new era of no replays at any stage, which frankly is an absolute disgrace, and it's only been brought about so that Spurs and Newcastle can bugger off to Melbourne 3 days after the season has ended and play a pointless friendly that nobody gives a toss about. It's a shambles, and I mean you only have to look at like Tamworth yesterday held Spurs to goalless draw after 90 minutes. Ordinarily, that would have been money spinning replay for them back at White Hart Lane, and they'd have earned another probably 500-600 grand off the top of that. Whereas now any non-league side going up against a pro team in a 90-minute game that then spills into extra time. It's very, very rare that a non-league team will be able to last that extra 30 minutes. The natural fitness of professional athletes against semi-pro. That sort of thing. It doesn't even really matter what level it is. I think League Two side would have had the same advantage as Spurs did yesterday over a part-time team like Tamworth. I've seen a report this morning that apparently the FA are considering scrapping extra time, which I'm all in favour for anyway. I think extra time for the most part is a waste of time because everybody's knackered. All you're doing is stringing out the game for an extra half an hour. More often than not, games aren't won in extra time. Other than these lopsided games against non-league sides. So getting rid of extra time, I've no particular issue with. I'd actually be in favour of that, but they have simultaneously said that they're not going to revisit the replay situation now. So I think we're basically done on that. Which as I say, the only teams that benefits is the top 7, 8, 9 teams. And you look at the sort of sides that some of the other teams have put out. Like Brentford made, I think, 8 changes, got turned over at home by Plymouth, who I think they've got 3 points away all season. So yeah, good of Brentford to kind of turn into us for 90 minutes. But yeah, like a side like them should be looking at an FA Cup run as an opportunity, because we know that on their day Brentford are a match for anybody in the Premier League, but they don't see it that way. They clearly, I mean, Thomas Frank was obviously one of the sort of more vocal sort of opponents of replays anyway. And yet, what's the point in him even coming out and saying anything when you're going to toss off a game like that against the side that's bottom of the Championship? You might as well just not bother entering and keep your thoughts to yourself and let the rest of us play in the competition that we want to play in. Yeah, I mean, I think the sort of magic of the FA Cup sort of trademark probably vanished when Man United was sent to Brazil to play in that Club World Cup, and obviously dipped out of playing in the FA Cup for a season. Wasn't their choice. The FA sent them because they thought that we could win the hosting rights for the World Cup, not realising that it had already been bought and paid for. And yeah, ever since then, it's the competition has been diminished in status, because once the FA, once the actual organizer of the competition stops taking it seriously, then everybody within that competition will kind of start to follow suit, unfortunately. And yeah, that's kind of where we are.
There's other stuff as well, isn't there? Little things like the draw for the next round happening halfway through the second half. That's ridiculous as well. No need for that. Yeah, well, whilst they're expanding the Champions League and and all that lot, that things were always going to get
too many games apparently.
Yeah, it's just absurd. I mean, it's always more in the bigger competitions, and the FA are quite happy to set fire to the traditions of the FA Cup, and that's the way it that's the way it seems to be, and that's the way it's going to be moving forward. It's not going to get any better, that's for sure. So the magic of the FA Cup is a bit of a joke, really, especially if you can remember back to what the FA Cup meant to everybody in the days before the Premier League, really. And it's just another competition that the bigger clubs certainly don't care enough to put out a decent team. And it's a struggle to get too excited for it these days, and that's where you get gates like we had yesterday. Because that fixture 20 years ago, if they priced it properly, would have probably had 28,000 in it. But you don't see that sort of thing anymore.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Is there anything else we've missed on the Swansea game yesterday?
Just Amo-Ameyaw chap's absence.
Yes, that's a good point.
I'm told he just needs to do more. Simple as that. I don't think there's anything sinister going on. I just think he needs to do more, which has sort of been the recurring verdict of Amo-Ameyaw.
Stick his hand up to play for the under-21s. I mean, literally just once.
Yeah. So I don't. I think the obvious thing is he obviously wants to leave, doesn't he? So obviously he probably wants to use this window to leave. But the best way to do that would be to showcase yourself, wouldn't it? Just told them just has to do more.
I've just got one more thing. Just got one more thing on yesterday. It was Nathan. Even Uric has Nathan Jones. I nearly said that. Even Uric has used the games that he's had so far. If you look at our defenders. You've got Bednarek, Harwood-Bellis, Walker-Peters, who always play, and the other two positions are kind of up for grabs. He's now tried all of Wood, Taylor, Manning, Bree, Sugawara.
Well, Manning for me took the place yesterday. In my opinion.
I think so too. I was going to say that. I thought he was excellent at left back. Gave us a balance. I'm really not sure about James Bree it's just not good enough. Just always looks lost to me. So I think there's still a question mark there as the third central defender. But I guess it's either going to be him or Nathan Wood in the. That's why I said Nathan, because Nathan Wood was on my list. So it'll be him or Wood going forward against Manchester United. But it's interesting to me that he's tried all these players and it'd be interesting to see what he settles on for the next few games going forward. That's it.
Alfie, Ryan Fraser's another player that we've not seen anything of since Urich's come in, have we? Is he injured?
Yeah, I lost you there for a second, Martin. But Ryan Fraser, I don't know. I haven't heard or seen anything. I don't know if he's fit. Don't know if he's just not being selected. So, one thing that was interesting that Ivan said, I can't remember if it was before the game or before. He said, "I've got sort of 17 or 18 players that are competitive," and I thought, okay, well that leaves out at least sort of 10 or 11 who aren't competitive. So I presume that he's one of those. That's the only assumption I can make.
Right, it is time for our TSP Player of the Week, gentlemen. Let's kick off with yourself, Glenn. Who's shone for you? Who's your Player of the Week?
I'm not going to say Sulmana. I'm going to let everyone else say it. I mean, he would. No, I'll go with that one. I'll go with that one. Kamaldeen Sulmana. You know, I love the second goal and his contribution in that, and Leslie Ogachukwu contribution in that. I thought it was excellent, and that's the kind of thing we've been expecting him to do for best part of 2 years, ever since he arrived, was to, a little give and go out on the wing and then play the ball in with a bit of quality into the right areas. And so, yeah, the fact that he scored, I mean, it was a good finish for the goal. Goalkeeper made his mind up for him a little bit. I don't know what on earth the goalkeeper was doing, but you've still got to finish it, and it was a good finish. Set up the second goal, and he looked for the first time like he was actually enjoying his football in that first half. So just for turning a bit of a corner. Hopefully, we'll see where it goes. So I'll say Sulmana for yesterday.
Steve, how about yourself?
I guess I'll go with the other goal scorer, Tyler Dibbling. Actually didn't have a huge impact on the game, but was there at the crucial moments, which you I think people kind of expect too much from someone of such young age and inexperience. But at the end of the day, if you are either contributing across a broad kind of period of the game, or you are impacting in little moments, I think realistically you're probably not going to have both very often. But if you can get one or the other out of him in each game, then you're guaranteed a certain level of quality. And we certainly had that in terms of the finishing yesterday. And yeah, I mean, obviously goals are the main currency, and I mean him getting a couple. I think it's only him and Archer that have managed to get two in a game this season. So long may that continue.
Alfie, your Player of the Week.
Yeah, do you know, Steve, Dibbling actually only had 17 touches in the entire game, and obviously two of them would score.
Very Haaland-esque.
Very efficient, very efficient. I'll complete the quartet, I suppose, with Leslie Ogachukwu, who I've already mentioned, a non-goal scorer. And then it's a toss-up between Matty Fernandez and Ryan Manning. So, I mean, anybody wants to put as the fourth option.
No, I thought
Manning was good.
Really good.
Manning, cool. There you go.
I was really impressed with Matheus Fernandes. I'll throw Matheus Fernandes. I thought he was brilliant. Whenever I see him play, I think he's a brilliant player.